What's going on, everybody? King of Dragons 5000 here, coming at you with another figure review. Today we'll be having a look at the Bandai Gundam universe, the RX Gundam. And so here we have the RX Gundam posed and out of the packaging. Before we take a look at the figure, let's actually see what the figure comes with. The RX Gundam does come with 2 pairs of hands. We do get a pair of fists. We get a trigger right hand, as well as a gripping left hand. We also get 2 beam sabers, which do fit in the grip hand really nicely, and you can store them on the back of the Gundam. We also do get the beam rifle, which is the primary weapon of the RX Gundam, which does fit in its trigger hand. Then we also get its shield, which looks really nice. I do like the way it looks, and the shield does attach to the arm or to the back, depending on how you want to have it displayed. So other than that, the RX Gundam doesn't come with anything else. I think it comes with everything you would need it to come with. The beam rifle, the beam swords, everything looks really nice on the figure. So with that out of the way, guys, let's actually have a closer look at the RX Gundam. And so here we have a closer look at the RX Gundam, and I know it is a little bit of a stark contrast, the white on white. I do apologize about that. But anyway, having a look at the RX Gundam, it really does convey the look of the RX Gundam from Mobile Suit Gundam, the original Gundam series, which I just wanted to pick this figure up because I wanted to have the original Gundam in my collection. And you know what? I'm not at all disappointed by this figure. So having a look at the head, you can see that it does have the RX traditional yellow eyes, which is really cool. I do like that. Later Gundam series would start to use green eyes. I do like the fact that the Gundam does have its goatee. Then we do have the traditional crest here, which does look really nice, and it would later go on to be like gold and other colors for other Gundams. But the RX started the trend of how the Gundams would look, and you know what? It's an iconic look, and there's a reason why the RX Gundam is one of the best Gundams to date, especially in design. Now, its design is a little bit blocky, but that's just because it was the first Gundam to be made, and its design does seem a little chunky, but that's perfectly okay because the animation was also a little bit choppy. But then again, it's a really old anime, so I can forgive it. So looking at the chest here, you can see it's a very square chest. It's not at all a bad thing. It still looks just as iconic as you would expect it to be. The blues and the reds do look really nice. I do love the vents right here. And one thing to note is that the vents are actually a separate piece. So those are actually molded in yellow. They're not painted, so I do like that little detail. On the back we do have its thrusters, which you can see right here. Unfortunately, the thrusters are not movable, so that is a little bit unfortunate. And I do have the beam sabers in their holsters right now. If you do want, you can take them out. But I do appreciate the fact that we do get storage with this figure. It's really rare that we get figures with weapon storage, so this is a really nice addition to the RX Gundam. Having a look at the arms, one thing to note is that a lack of paint is obviously noticeable on these figures. It is pretty obvious, especially when you see that the panel lining isn't painted, which is unfortunate, but it's a $20 figure, and Bandai did market these as more affordable figures. They're not the robot Damashi figures that they're known for. These are actually affordable figures. So I do understand the lack of paint. I just kind of wish that it had some. It still looks really nice, and something I think the RX Gundam needs is some wear and tear on it, just because it's a Gundam that sees a lot of battle, and I would expect a lot of wear and tear to be prevalent on it. But having a clean RX is just as good as having a dirty one. You can see we do have the little insignia right here. We have the yellow patches right here on its kilt piece, or skirt piece, whatever you want to call it. That continues onto the back. Then we have these really long legs where you can see they do have a lot of nice detailing in them, just no panel lining coloring. If you do have a Gundam marker, you can go in and paint those with a Gundam marker just to highlight those details. From a distance, it just looks like white, and that's not really a good look. But if you are talented enough or just have the time to do it, you can actually paint in the panel lining just to give it some more detail. We do have some paint apps right here inside these crevices, as you can see. Those do look really nice. Going on to the feet, we do have the guards right here that are at the ankles, which it's a little surprising that it only covers the front of the ankle. The back of the ankle is really exposed. Then we do go on to the foot of the RX Gundam, which has a lot of nice detail on it. You can see the thrusters on it look really nice. There's a lot of good detailing right here, which unfortunately you're not going to see too often, because more than likely you're just going to have the RX standing like that. But that's not at all a bad thing. I'd rather the detail be there and you can appreciate it when you have it posed, because it's just something about this figure that hits me with a strong sense of nostalgia. It looks really nice, and I do really like the way the RX Gundam came out. So with that out of the way, guys, let's actually compare the RX Gundam to other figures you may have in your collection. Here we have the RX Gundam posed next to a Marvel Legends Cyclops and a DC Multiverse Superman. Here we have the RX Gundam posed next to a WWE Elite Scale figure and a Mezco 1/12 Collective Popeye the Sailor Man. Here we have the RX Gundam posed next to a Lightning Collection White Ranger and a Star Wars Black Series Mandalorian. And finally, here we do have the RX Gundam posed next to the Gundam Universe Wing Gundam. So with the comparisons out of the way, let's actually move on to the RX's articulation. Now we do have a ball joint here at the head, which surprisingly he can look up quite a bit. I do like the range of motion of the RX Gundam's head. We do get some really nice head tilt. It does look left and right. Now unfortunately we don't get too much downward movement from a neutral position, which is about right here. We only get that much downward movement, but that is a little bit unfortunate. So with the arms here, the shoulder pad is on a ball joint, so that does move around. As you can see, the arm does go out to the side to about right there before the armor starts getting in the way. We do have rotation all the way around. Just be careful, because like I said, it is a very boxy figure and some parts might get stuck on it. Like you might accidentally catch the shoulder pad right here on the back. So just be aware of how you're rotating things and you're not going to have an issue with it. We do have a bicep swivel up high, and that's a really squeaky joint. You can actually hear that. That is a really squeaky joint. This side, and not so bad. Still has a little bit of squeak. That side, oh, you can hear that. So gotta lubricate that joint up just a little bit. We do have a single bend at the elbow, giving us a little close to 90 degrees, which is pretty fair for a Gundam. Then we do have a ball hinge, or not a ball hinge, but just a regular ball joint here in the wrist, so that does move in and out, up and down, every way you want. It does roll, and it does rotate on that joint, of course. Then we do have somewhat of an ab crunch here on the RX Gundam. You can see it leans back about that far, leans forward about that far before all the armor starts getting in the way. It looks like there might be another hinge right in there, but if it is, I can't get mine to move. I don't know. It might be a hinge, it might not be. I haven't taken it apart yet, and I'm a little scared to take it apart, so I'm probably not going to do that. We do have some slight rotation here at the chest, and I do believe that this middle part is just a floating cap. It's not at all attached to anything. So one issue I have run into with my RX Gundam, these little the skirt piece does move out of the way, so you can get the articulation moving. The leg does kick out to about there, but if you try kicking it any higher, and it's not going to do it now, when I was just testing the figure out, this leg would pop off constantly just for moving it up this high, but now it doesn't want to do it. It's a curse of the review. It doesn't do what you want it to do. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that it was doing that earlier, but for some reason it's not doing it anymore. But anyway, moving on, we do have a thigh swivel up high, which it does get a little bit cumbersome because of how square this figure is. We do have a double joint in the knee, which only goes to about 90 degrees. You can see we have a single joint there. Then we have another joint that covers that up. Then we do have an interesting setup here at the ankle. We do have a ball joint up here. So where the ankle connects to this part, we have a ball joint, so that does pivot forward and back, side to side really nicely. The ankle guard is also on a ball joint, so that also moves around. We have side to side, up and down, so that helps with the pivot. Then we have another ball joint in the foot, so that also adds to the motion of the RX Gundam, so we can get some really good range just in that foot. It is a little bit stiff, so do be aware of that. You can hear it squeaking. There's a lot of squeaking with this figure, so do be careful when you hear squeaking. You don't ever want to force joints. But yeah, that's the RX Gundam's articulation, and I think it's pretty good for a mobile suit. You're not going to see too many karate poses from the RX Gundam, which I'm perfectly okay with. It's a very old machine, so they did a really good job capturing the look of it. So with that out of the way, guys, let's actually get them posed for my final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up this review. And so here we have the RX Gundam pose for my final thoughts, and overall, I really do enjoy the way this figure came out. Now, I know it has been a hot minute since I have reviewed a Gundam Universe figure. It's not that I don't enjoy the line, it's just that I haven't been able to get around to reviewing them. There's been other figures that I've wanted to take a look at, but now that I have some time to review this figure, I'm actually enjoying how it came out. A lot of this actually does work. Now, there are some issues that I do have with it, and that's mainly coming from an engineering standpoint, and the fact that the RX Gundam is such a blocky design, it does lend itself to being hindered in a lot of places. Some areas of caution I would advise are the hips. The hips might have a tendency to pop out, so do be careful with that. The shoulder pads might get caught as you rotate them, so do use caution and be aware of when you're rotating them and how they're getting snagged. You don't want to end up breaking them. And then the beam sabers, although I do like the thought, I kind of wish that they were made of a translucent plastic, because they are just made out of white plastic painted in metallic pink, which isn't a bad look at all, but again, I would just prefer if it was a translucent plastic. Overall, I really do enjoy the way that the RX Gundam came out, although I do feel like he could have a little more paint detail. And again, I do understand that Bandai did make this a more affordable Gundam line versus the Damashi Spirits, but I kind of would have liked to see some like painted panel lining on this figure. It's not at all a deal breaker for me, but I do know a lot of people would prefer to have the paint rather than not have it, so that is something to take into consideration when picking up a figure from the Gundam Universe line. Overall, I really do recommend the RX Gundam, especially if you're a fan of Mobile Suit Gundam, which is the original Gundam series. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. It's a phenomenal series. And as always, if you like this video, why don't you leave a like and tell me how I did. Subscribe to my channel, check out all my other action figure reviews, as well as all my other Gundam and SH figure art videos. Hopefully you find them informative. As always, if there's a figure you'd like to see me review, let me know down in the comments, and if it's in my collection, I'll gladly take a look at it. While you're at it, check out my Instagram account for new and exciting action figure photos, and as always, ring that bell to be notified every time I upload a video. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Take care, everyone.